Right then, welcome back to another deep dive. And have you ever thought about that phrase, time changes nothing? It's something we hear quite often. But the more I kind of ponder on it, the more I wonder if it's, well, if it's a bit of a misleading statement, really. Because sure, time keeps ticking away, relentlessly moving forward. But is it really like the agent of change? Or is it just like the backdrop against which our actions and our decisions, well, like our lives, play out? That's what we're going to be diving into today. So the other day, I was talking to a friend, and she was lamenting about being in her mid-30s, and kind of felt like, certain life milestones should have already been reached. And it got me thinking, because, I have friends my age who are, jumping toddlers. Others who are sending their kids off to university, and then others who are only just now starting their families. But we've all lived the same number of years, haven't we? Yet our lives look, vastly different. So why is that? It's not time that's made the difference, is it? It's the choices that we've all made, the paths that we've chosen to walk.
And, this whole concept really crystallized for me when another friend of mine, who happens to be just a fortnight younger than me, was buying her first house. And I remember thinking, wow, we're the same age. But I'm nearly done paying off my mortgage. And so time, that constant, had ticked by for both of us. But our financial pictures were miles apart because of the different decisions we made along the way, the different steps that we had taken. And it gets even more interesting when you think about people who bought homes years ago, but then life happened and they ended up losing them. And again, time wasn't the deciding factor, was it? It was the choices they made. It was sometimes good, sometimes not so good. And then just the unpredictable circumstances that life throws our way. And so it begs the question, is time will tell really the right way to think about it? Because what time reveals is not like some mystical preordained destiny. It's the consequence of our actions, the ripple effects of our choices. It's almost as though time is the stage and we're the actors. We get to write the script, rehearse the lines, and then ultimately decide how the play unfolds.
So I know what you might be thinking now. You might be thinking, okay, if it's not about waiting for time to pass, then what on earth should we be doing? And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because if we accept that time in and of itself changes nothing, then the responsibility shifts, doesn't it? It shifts to us to become the architects of our own lives. And this is where the idea of targeted action comes in. You see, it's not about just filling our days with busy work, running around like headless chickens. It's about taking those deliberate steps, strategic steps towards the future that we want to build, that we envision. So it's about asking ourselves that question, what do I truly want to change? What actions, big or small, will actually move me closer to that goal? I've always been a bit of a bookworm. I love to read, love to learn, and I'm fascinated by, how different thinkers view the world. And it strikes me that this whole concept of time and action, it really ties in beautifully with some of the ideas that I've come across.
For example, there's this school of thought in psychology that talks about, the locus of control, essentially about whether you believe you're in charge of your life, or you feel like external forces are calling the shots. And what's so fascinating is that people who have an internal locus of control, the ones who believe that they have agency, they tend to be more proactive, more resilient, and just generally more satisfied with their lives. It's almost as if believing that you have the power to shape your destiny actually empowers you to do so. But it's not just about bursts of action, is it? It's about showing up day after day. Even when it's tough, even when we don't feel like it, it's about that sustained effort over time. Those small incremental steps that create real lasting change. Think about it like compounding interest, right? Those small regular contributions, they build up over time and they end up creating something far greater than we could have ever imagined. And it's not just in finance where this applies. It's in our relationships, our health, our careers, like every aspect of our lives. It's about making those daily choices that align with our values, with the kind of person that we want to be, the kind of life that we want to build. It's about recognizing that even those seemingly insignificant decisions, even those little moments where we choose to act or not act, they all add up. They all create this tapestry of our lives. And I know there can be times we stumble, we make mistakes, or life throws us a curveball and we feel completely off track. And that's okay. It's part of the journey. But it's in those moments that this whole idea of time and action, it becomes even more crucial, because it reminds us that we always have the power to choose how we respond. We can either wallow in self-pity, blame external forces, and just let circumstances dictate our path, or we can pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and use those experiences as fuel for growth, as lessons learned, as opportunities to course correct. And this brings me to another myth that I want to debunk, one that I feel is often thrown around, is that age automatically equals wisdom. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot to be said for experience, for the insights that come from navigating the ups and downs of life.
But I think it's a dangerous oversimplification to assume that just simply accumulating years makes someone wise. I mean, I've certainly encountered people who've lived long lives, but they haven't necessarily learned much along the way. They've clung to outdated beliefs. They've refused to challenge their assumptions and ultimately become stuck in their ways. But then there are those who, despite their youth, they just radiate this profound understanding of the world, a depth of insight that belies their years. And so what sets these individuals apart is not time itself, but how they've chosen to engage with it. You see, true wisdom in my mind comes from actively reflecting on our experiences, from seeking out knowledge and different perspectives, from being willing to admit when we're wrong and to learn from our mistakes. It's about nurturing that inner curiosity, that hunger to understand the world around us and our place within it. It's about embracing the fact that we're all lifelong learners, constantly evolving, constantly becoming. So if we let go of this notion that time, in and of itself, changes anything, and we embrace this idea that it's our actions, it's our choices that shape our lives, then we start to see time differently, don't we? It becomes less about passively waiting for things to happen and more about actively creating the future that we desire. It becomes less about the years that pass and more about the experiences that we gather, the lessons that we learn, the impact that we make. And this brings us full circle, doesn't it, back to that idea of time will tell. But maybe we need to reframe that phrase a bit. Maybe it's not about time revealing, some kind of predetermined fate for us, but rather time offering us the space, the opportunity to see the consequences of our choices play out. It's kind of like planting a seed, right? You nurture it, you give it sunlight, you give it water. But ultimately, it's the seed itself that holds the potential to grow. Time just provides the environment, the conditions. But it's our actions, our choices that determine what will flourish. And even choosing not to act, procrastinating or staying stuck in our comfort zones, well, it's still a choice, isn't it?
And have consequences just like any other action would. It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. I mean, we can't change the past, but we can always choose to act in the present, to start moving in the direction that we want to go. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought, something to ponder, something to maybe spark a little shift in your own perspective. What if instead of viewing time as this external force that's controlling us, we started to see it as a resource, a gift, something precious and finite that we get to choose how to spend? What if we started to view ourselves not as passive passengers on this journey called life, but as the navigators, the map makers, the ones, charting the course? Because ultimately, time changes nothing. It's what we do with it, the actions that we take, the choices that we make. Those are the things that determine who we become and the legacy that we leave behind. That's the story that time will tell. So that's it for today's deep dive. Go out there, seize the day, and make your time count.